G'day. Well, today I'm going to talk about the inner unit, and the inner unit is a term that's coined by Paul Chek, and that's basically, for argument's sake, we're going to talk about four muscle groups. So these muscle groups create like a cylinder, and in doing so, if you can engage them all in concert together, that's what creates spinal stability. So anyone that has any lower back pain, any lower limb pain, shoulder pain, any type of pain, it always comes back to, is the inner unit functioning properly? And I'm going to go through this 3D anatomy model, just to explain just the layers, okay? So what we're looking at is basically all the external layers of muscles. And when we talk about the core, we've got a number of layers before we get to the deep muscles underneath. And they're actually, the muscle fibers are different types. The deeper you get to the skeleton, the more type 1 fibers there are. And basically what we're trying to do is, when you've got a dysfunction with any of these muscle groups that make up the inner unit, we're trying to activate them as best we can. So what I'm going to do is just show you. So we've got external obliques, which we're going to get rid of. So we'll get rid of both sides. We've got internal obliques, which we're going to get rid of. And then under that is the rectus abdominis, which we're going to get rid of. And then this here is the transverse abdominis. So this here is your deepest abdominal muscle. And this is what we need to try and activate. This is really important, this one. So the transverse abdominis, so it's both sides, goes all the way around to the back, as you can see. And all these muscles on top, these are all prime movers. So we'll get rid of these as well. But this deep abdominal muscle is one part of it. There are parts of the internal oblique that do link into this, but for argument's sake, for now, we're just going to talk about rectus abdominis. So then, if you think of the rectus abdominis like a corset, okay, so it goes all the way around. And then we turn off all these erectors and lat dorsi. So we'll turn this off, turn that off. And we can zoom in here. And what we're going to start to get to is the multifidus. So the multifidus are little muscles that basically span over 1 to 3 vertebrae, and basically their job is to hold the vertebra in place so it doesn't slip forward. So when you bend forward, they don't slip forward. But what you find with lower back pain is that the multifidus is not functioning properly. And so what has to hold on are all those erector muscles that I just removed. But for now, just think of the multifidus as the ribbon to the corset. So if you've got the transverse abdominis, and then you've got the multifidus, that makes the round part of the cylinder. And then you've got the lid, which is the diaphragm. So if we turn that off, we can see we've got the diaphragm here. And the diaphragm is really important because it's your breathing muscle. And as you can see here, you can see it's got this crew, this tail, and it attaches to L1 to L2, L1, L2, and L3. And basically what happens is, when you breathe and you're breathing diaphragmatically, you create space, because the tail here basically pulls up on L1 to L3 and takes the load off L4 and L5 down here. So this is the top of the cylinder, and the bottom of the cylinder is your pelvic floor. So if we go here, so your pelvic floor is all these muscles here, all here. So what we're doing is we're making sure that when we engage all this, we're engaging it all together, all at once. So we'll go undo. There we go. So the inner unit is really about activating all these muscles together at once, at the same time. And a big thing that they talk about and that I do with my clients is talk about the intra-abdominal pressure. And what that is being able to do a deep breath. So deep breath, and what happens is the ribs will expand, the belly expands, and then the chest expands. And it basically fills up the thorax with air. And then what we do is we hold that. Now that in itself will help create space and help create spinal stability. But what takes it even to another level is when we draw a transverse abdominis back. So we basically, our umbilicus, our belly button, when we draw that back towards the spine, it activates this transverse abdominis. Okay, and then in concert with that, we also lift up the pelvic floor. So we draw the pelvic floor up. So we've got that expansion. So you've got to think of it like a balloon. You've got that expansion and of the breath, and then from there we draw the belly button in, okay, and then we draw the pelvic floor up. And basically what we're doing is the fibers of the transverse abdominis will pull on here is a big fascial area called the thoracolumbar fascia, and it pulls on the thoracolumbar fascia to create spinal stability. But the breath, because you've breathed in nice through the diaphragm, it's pulling up. So you have these forces pulling one way and then pulling up as well. So this is where you get spinal stability from. And this is actually the real foundational activations that you need to get spinal stability. So a big part of what I do with my clients is teach them how to activate all these muscles, and there's corrective exercises for them, and also work on their breathing, their inhalation, exhalation, making sure you've got full use of the diaphragm, the ribs, the intercostal muscles, they're all moving freely so that you can breathe correctly. And you'll find anyone that does any type of sport or any training, how important the breath is to downregulate the body. So not only does pain upregulate the system, it also creates us to breathe shallow and through the chest. So the inner unit really requires deep breathing through the diaphragm, activation of the transverse abdominis and the multifidus, and then engaging the pelvic floor. And if we can do that all together, you get spinal stability. And if you are interested in any of that, please reach out, because the corrective exercises, we can take you through those corrective exercises to help activate the core and move you out of your back pain.